Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadha Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadha Yasoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiara Banacha Hari Yamuna Tiara Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribharadha Yasoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiara Banacha Tiara Banacha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So we are reading from the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, chapter, volume 4, and it is the chapter, India, Dancing White Elephants. I was one of those. Bombay, which is now called Mumbai, November 1970. I didn't get there till 71, so. For the next month, Prabhupada and his disciples stayed at Manoharlal Agarwal's Sita Ram temple in Jembur. Actually, it was Mr. Agarwal's residence, but since he maintained the worship of Sita Ram deities, his home was called Ram Sharanam, under the shelter of Lord Rama. Prabhupada occupied one room and his disciples 2 other rooms, with access to a kitchen and bath. The Sita Ram temple and suburban neighborhood provided a peaceful atmosphere, and Prabhupada returned to concentrated work on Srimad Bhagavatam, corresponding with ISKCON centers around the world, and looking after the small group of disciples who were with him. He had great hope Krishna would provide a way for ISKCON to become well established in India. We are now just receiving great publicity, and it is reported that Bombay has now got its atmosphere filled with Krishna consciousness. It is a fact, and the important members of the Bombay community are appreciating our movement. For the present, I am more prominent than all Swamis. People are appreciating. What are these Swamis? They cannot go outside. There is a Bengal saying that a jackal is king in a small forest. The story is that a jackal became king of the forest by fooling the other animals for some time, but he remained always a jackal, and his ruse was at last exposed. That's a quote from Prabhupada. Although Mr. Agarwal was honored that Prabhupada had accepted his invitation and was now living as his guest, Prabhupada knew that the situation would ultimately prove inconvenient for everyone involved. To open one's home to a dozen guests and feed them daily was a strain even for a wealthy man, and for the devotees to live in those tiny quarters under the already trying conditions of irregular hours, frequent sickness, and tropical heat was not easy. The solution, of course, was for the devotees to get their own place, an ISKCON center in Mumbai. As a sannyasi, Prabhupada was prepared to stay anything, moving as often as necessary, accepting alms. He had lived that way for years before going to America. But now he had 20 spiritual children to support in India and more on the way. They were not mature. He wanted them near him so that they could observe how he did things and imbibe the spirit of preaching in India. When a Hindu organization in downtown Bombay requested a few devotees to attend a 3-day program, Prabhupada approved. But when the program was over and the leaders of the organization invited the devotees to stay indefinitely, Prabhupada said, no, they will simply eat and sleep. Better them to stay with him at the crowded Ram Sharanam. Mrs. Sumati Morarji, the wealthy director of Skindia steamship lines, had finished the printing of the 3rd volume of Prabhupada's Bhagavatam in 1964. And in 1965, she had provided him free passage to America. Now she invited Prabhupada to speak at this Scindia house near Juhu. Seated on stage, Prabhupada and Sumati Morarji reminisced, celebrating Prabhupada's success. I do not think you would come back alive, Mrs. Morarji said, but I am pleased to see you. No longer was Prabhupada the poor sadhu Mrs. Morarji had met 6 years ago. He was a success. And Sumati Morarji and her staff and friends were happy to hear about the Krishna consciousness movement in the West. It's interesting, we're looking at what an austerity it was for the devotees to move to different places and stay in things that were a little inconvenient. But the devotees, we were so young that someone said, did you hear what happened to Tamal Krishna? I said, no, what? Someone said, he turned 24. I said, 24, because I'm like 18. And Shai Mishinder says, that's nothing, I'm 29. You go, 29? So we were all young in relation to Prabhupada in his 70s. But still, Prabhupada moved into places in Vrindavan. He went to Butler, Pennsylvania, and then he was staying in the Bowery, and the one person, Paul, got intoxicated and pushed him down the stairs, so he had to find another place. And that's when Mukunda got the 26th 2nd Avenue. But Prabhupada was used to trying to move around without all the help, so he was able at his older age to tolerate more than we could. Before Prabhupada's lecture, Tamal Krishna formally introduced him to the audience. Srila Prabhupada left for the West 5 years ago from the city. He had almost no money. He went to New York, where he chanted Hare Krishna in a park underneath the tree. Soon he opened a temple, where he continued his chanting and held classes on Vedic philosophy. Many people came, and gradually he opened new centers, San Francisco, Montreal, Boston, and so on. Now he has many devotees and over 40 temples. In each temple there is a full-scale program of Sankirtan, deity worship, and prasadam distribution. India has sent many ambassadors and ministers to the West, but none of them can say that he made the Americans give up eating meat, fish, and eggs and got them to chant Hare Krishna. Everyone is indebted to Srila Prabhupada because he came to relieve the suffering of all fallen souls. We see that Prabhupada had, some people start small and they stay there, or other people just want to build a big center. And then once they build a center, they try to get people to come to it. That's why you see certain centers or churches that other religions have. Not as many people are coming there. But Prabhupada's idea is, even though he had big plans, you start something right away. You don't make the preaching wait. It's just like here, they had the temple at Cato Ridge, and before that, they did the tent campaigns, and Parthasarathi Swami would put up the tents and people would come, just like the Christians do a tent campaign. We would do those. We didn't have a temple yet, so we put up a tent. And Prabhupada had just a little storefront. He would go chant in the park, and he attracted people. Because the main thing is, if we have a facility, but we don't open it for people, and we don't hold programs, and we don't go out into the public, it defeats the purpose. So Prabhupada, even if he had big plans, you start something right away. Even if you're chanting at the beach or at someone's home to do a program, you do something. But it doesn't mean you give up your big plans. Both things have to be held in tension at the same time. Prabhupada sang 3 verses from Brahma Samhita and invited the audience to join in the chorus, Govindamadi Prusham Tamaham Bhajami. After speaking for half an hour, he accepted prasadam with Srimati Morarji, an honored guest and dignitary. He met Dr. C. Bali and his wife, the famous dancer and movie actress, Vaijanti Mala. He spoke only briefly with them, and they became life members of ISKCON. Here's a quote from Vaijanti Mala. Srila Prabhupada made his preaching so simple that even a layperson could understand what our great philosophy and our great teaching meant. Not only was he propagating the great culture of our Lord Krishna, but he was making the people of other parts of the world really understand its meaning and significance. By his simple yet very great teachings of Krishna, he took this message so far and so wide that it's really a marvel that a person single-handedly could do so much. He not only preached and just talked about the whole thing, but he also established so many centers in many parts of the world. And this is really amazing that he could do it in spite of difficulties. With his perseverance and his persistence, I think kept him on. It's funny, as I got to Mumbai in March of 71. This is November of 70, so it's a few months later. But Dr. Bali and Srimati Morarji would come every day. And I was only 18 years old. They were like an aunt and an uncle for me. And once we went to J. Om Prakash's house, who was the biggest movie producer in India. And it was funny because Prabhupada was not feeling well. So we were going to go there and do a program at his house. This house was so big, I went downstairs to find a washroom, and then I got lost. But when I heard the kirtan, I figured out how to follow the sound and get back to there. And then J. Om Prakash says, I'll tell you the truth about Indian movies. Indian movies are corny. He said, because they're getting ready to kill each other, but first we'll break for a dance. And the girls come out with the pom-poms, and they do a dance, and then they go back, which to American mind, it's like, if you're going to kill each other, you don't have a dance first, do you? Like when the thieves come to rob you here, we're going to rob you. But first let's have a dance. We're going to rob you today, right? Do they do that? Or do they just get to it and rob you? There's no dance? Is there a dance? No. So they don't do it Bollywood style. So that ruined Indian movies for me. I never saw any. The public sensation of Srila Prabhupada's disciples chanting in the streets of Mumbai and at the Sadhu Samaj had died down. The regular news coverage had stopped. Srila Prabhupada was sought after by many important people in Bombay. His accomplishments after 5 years in America commanded the esteem and attention of intelligent Indians. Think about that. The oldest devotees were only in the movement 5 years. Even when Prabhupada left, he'd only been here for 11 years. Daily he received respectable visitors who accepted him as the authority on Krishna consciousness. Indians regarded Prabhupada as unique, even in a culture where swamis and holy men are commonly treated with respect. He was regarded as special. His visitors would beg him to come to their homes and sanctify them. And this is also in line with Prabhupada's desire. He wanted to engage Indians in chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, and honoring the Lord's prasadam. He wanted them to appreciate the purity of the Krishna consciousness movement, enlist as life members of ISKCON, and help him establish a large center in Bombay. In preaching to Indians, Prabhupada would often urge them to return to their all but forgotten spiritual culture. Our culture is Krishna consciousness, he said, before a group of Bombay citizens, but we are forgetting and becoming too materially absorbed. Lord Rishabhdev says that this is not good because, according to the law of karma, you will have to take another body. But you don't have to give up your hard struggle for material life. Arjuna was not advised to do this. He remained in his position, and executed Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada concluded, I am begging. I have 42 temples in the West, and in each one there are 50 to 100 disciples. Thousands of books have to be printed. Please help me with this movement. Manohar Agarwal, Prabhupada's host at Ram Sharanam, would often sit with him for hours inquiring about spiritual life. Mr. Agarwal was particularly interested in hearing of Prabhupada's work in America, how he had transformed so many Christians into Ram Bhaktas. Had he been alone, or had there been helpers? How did he dress in America? What was his approach? Prabhupada recounted his early preaching in the Lower East Side of New York, and he explained how everything had happened by Krishna's desire. Mr. Agarwal doubted whether Westerners would be able to stay with Krishna consciousness very long. Now in the radiance of your company, he said, as long as you are here, bodily and physically, they may continue to observe all these restrictions. But when your physical influence will not be there one day, when you will have to leave this world, then all these people that have come in contact with you, will they go bad? No, Prabhupada said firmly. Your claim is very tall, replied Mr. Agarwal. Can you tell me what is the basic foundation of your claim? Prabhupada reminded him that all of his disciples had been initiated to the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, and that according to Vedic scriptures, the constant chanting of the Lord's holy name will save even the most fallen souls and protect them from falling again. Even after his passing away, Prabhupada predicted his disciples would not fall victim to Maya as long as they continued their prescribed chanting. One day, Mr. Agarwal asked how long Prabhupada and his disciples were planning to stay. Srila Prabhupada said that he was very happy staying where he was, but would try to find a new place immediately. Mr. Agarwal insisted that he had no intention of asking Prabhupada to leave. His home belonged to Prabhupada and not to himself. He begged him to kindly continue to stay. Prabhupada said this reminded him of an incident from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he's told a story about Haridas Thakur, the great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Haridas Thakur used to live alone in a cave where he chanted Hare Krishna day and night. Many pilgrims would visit him, but when they learned that a python was also living in the cave, they became afraid. Although Haridas Thakur was satisfied with this cave, he didn't want to inconvenience his visitors, so he said he would leave the cave that day and not return. Yet even as he spoke, the huge python came winding out from the back of the cave into the presence of all. Passing near Haridas Thakur, the snake bowed his head to the ground and slithered away. The supersoul within the heart of the python had impelled him to leave the cave so that Haridas Thakur could remain. Prabhupada laughed as he told the story. Agarwal, he said, you have said the same thing. You have said that you will go away and that we will stay. But no, we will go. You will go. So, this is what's there, is that it said, Prabhupada, what will happen when you die? he says, I will never die because I live in my books. And I think when I was there in 1971, I would hear Prabhupada in the next room translating the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. But actually today you have more access to that because it wasn't printed yet, and I couldn't hear all of it. And I would go to do the Mangal Artik. No one else was there. But I would make the plate. It was amazing. And I'd go to bed, Prabhupada was still translating. And when I wake up, he was translating again. I know he slept somewhere in the middle, but not sure exactly how much he slept in the middle. But because we were on the 7th floor, we couldn't have like a loud Mangal Artik because it would disturb the neighbors. So I would go do the Mangal Artik alone. And when it came time to like offer the flower, I could hear the door in the Akash Ganga. There was Prabhupada's room next to the living room, which we used for a temple. And then there was 3 more rooms that the brahmacharis and householders stayed in. And we had a kitchen and a little front area we used as an office. So Prabhupada would come out, I'd offer the flower and hand the flower to Prabhupada directly. And then at lunch I got to go in Prabhupada's room, and I would put away the Sanskrit volumes that he was translating. He had the commentaries by Jiva Goswami, Sridhar Swami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and his own spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. So I would put those away, and then I would give Prabhupada his plate, which Jamuna did the cooking, and they'd make a big plate for Prabhupada. The maha was offered to Radha Ras Bihari, and it was offered to Radha Ras Bihari. Then the maha was put on a big plate, not quite as big as this table, but huge, and that's what I would take in to Prabhupada. And I knew how a fish felt in a fish bowl, because there's nowhere for the fish to hide, right? You feel like this kind of feels like a fish bowl in here, because you can be seen from all sides, right? There's no hiding in here. So I knew that with Prabhupada, there was no secrets from him. And then when Prabhupada, I would go out, and myself and a couple other devotees would serve the other devotees their prasadam. And then when they finished, I would go in. They would all leave to go back to go do collections. And then I would go into Prabhupada's room and get the plate. And I would clear the plate off, and I would clean Prabhupada's plate. And what he left behind, that was my lunch for a couple months. I got to just eat Prabhupada's remnants. It seemed like only the natural thing. No one else was there. And I just cleaned it off. And so I would eat it there. And they made plenty of chapatis for him. So there was plenty there. And in the evening, because I had Gayatri initiation, obviously, so after the Artik, I would go put the water on Prabhupada's head and give Prabhupada the flower from the Artik. And the one day, the night before I was doing the Artik, and the Pakistani planes had come to bomb, and I saw bombs drop and explosions coming and tracer bullets going in the air, and I'm doing the Artik, because we had windows where you could see out to the ocean, and they were dropping bombs there. And so the next day I was in big anxiety when I went into Prabhupada's room. And Prabhupada was talking with Yadu Bhara, Vishaka, and Tamal Krishna, and he puts his hand up and says, just a minute. And he looks up at me and he said, so everything is all right? And just like that, the anxiety went away. And the next day, my mother called from America, which was hard to do then. It's not like now you can just dial the numbers. It would take a while to get through. But she'd seen on the news that Pakistan had bombed Bombay, and she wondered if I was okay, and I said, yes, I'm okay here with Srila Prabhupada. So here's a new chapter called Chapter 5, A Lot of Ground to be Covered. December 3rd, 1970. India continued to be like a dream for Prabhupada's disciples, who gazed out the windows as the train moved them from India's unfamiliar rural world. The trackside business Bushes blossomed in yellow. Mile after mile of irrigated agricultural fields passed by. Wheat, rice, sugarcane, varieties of dal, small villages, mud-walled houses with straw roofs or thatched walls with tile roofs drifted peacefully by. An occasional village temple made of stone would rise above the surrounding simple structures. Cowherd boys with sticks tended their herds on the grassy banks of meandering streams, and the grazing cows, the oxen plowing in the ancient fields, the dung paddies drying in the sun for fuel, the smoke rising from the cooked fires, and the smell of the warm earth, all were part of a peaceful, simple way of life the devotees were coming to appreciate through Prabhupada's association. Prabhupada and his disciples were en route to Indore, a city of 475,000 in the central Indian province of Madhya Pradesh. Obviously, it's simple. Madhya Pradesh means middle country. 13 hours northeast of Bombay. The directors of the Gita Jayanti Mahotsava, a festival to celebrate the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, and invited Prabhupada and his disciples to attend their conversation and public meeting. In Indore, Prabhupada and his disciples settled into their quarters near the Gita Bhavan, the site of the Gita Jayanti Mahotsava. The directors of the convention had assigned Prabhupada a bungalow with a lawn and a garden, and provided nearby facilities for his disciples. The touring grounds of the Gita Bhavan, noting the many swamis and sadhus who had arrived from various parts of the world for the Mahotsava. They saw the large pandal and stage, the eye hospital run by Gita Bhavan, and the diorama exhibit. The diorama exhibit they regarded as a kind of eclectic mixing of spiritual paths that Prabhupada often referred to as hodgepodge. Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Vivekananda, Radhakrishna, demigods, and animals were all on display. While admiring the energy and imagination that had produced such an exhibit, the devotees questioned the benefit of such a conglomeration. On the first night of the festival, Prabhupada was celebrated as the last speaker. His disciples, who sat there with him on stage, grew bored and restless from the ordeal of many hours of Hindi speeches. After knowing that these speakers were presenting Mayavad conceptions, made the evening especially painful. Srila Prabhupada sat sternly and waited, his hand in his bead bag, his head held high, his lips murmuring the Hare Krishna mantra. When Prabhupada finally spoke, he began by explaining that in the West, he was spreading the teachings of the Gita as it is. Bhagavad Gita, he said, could be properly understood only in disciplic succession, just as Arjuna, the original student of Bhagavad Gita, had understood it. The Gita was meant for the devotee of Krishna and should not be misinterpreted by non-devotees. To misinterpret the Gita, he said, was to cheat in the name of religion. He also spoke strongly against pseudo-incarnations. Prabhupada concluded his talk and asked his disciples to begin kirtan. It was an ecstatic, spontaneous event, and Prabhupada began dancing on stage along with his disciples. The crowd came to life and began clapping rhythmically. Hansaduta jumped down from the stage and, still playing Madanga, and began inducing members of the audience to join in chanting and dancing. Several other members also jumped down, and soon hundreds of people had risen to their feet, swaying, clapping, and singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This was the real Gita Jayanti Mahotsava. The holy name of Krishna was being sung, and everyone was happily united in kirtan. Greatly pleased by the performance of Prabhupada and his disciples, the Pandal directors visited Prabhupada the next day in his bungalow. Prabhupada had complained about having to wait so long before he could speak. His disciples shouldn't be required to sit through hours of speeches in a language they couldn't understand. When Prabhupada intimated that the speeches seriously deviated from the teachings of Gita, the director of the Gita Bhavan replied, "We do not favor any particular way. Followers of the Sankara school and others also come to our institution. We do not subscribe wholly that Sri Krishna is the sole God or anything of the sort. There is a power behind him." The remark drew fire from Srila Prabhupada. What kind of glorification was this if the speakers did not accept Krishna as he is? Explained in the Gita, Gita declares Krishna to be the highest truth, Mata Paramam Nanyat. Prabhupada advised the directors of the Gita Bhavan to try to understand the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. The directors did not change their opinion, but they were intelligent enough to see that Prabhupada was a pandit and a saint, and they listened respectfully. Nodding, they said they accepted his point of view. After the man left, Prabhupada continued, "We are thinking that there is something beyond Krishna, or that it is the spirit within Krishna that they have to surrender. But they do not know that within and without of Krishna are absolute, eternal, and full of bliss." Prabhupada said he could see that the organizers of Gita Jayanti Mahotsava had invited him to draw larger crowds, but they would not make him sit again through all the Mayavad nonsense, he said. From now on, he would go with his disciples, speak, chant, and then leave. The next night, however, despite promises by the Pandal directors, Srila Prabhupada again had to wait until the end of the program before he could speak and hold kirtan. That night, the crowd was larger than before, and they were clearly waiting for Srila Prabhupada and the foreign sadhus. When Prabhupada's turn came at last, he spoke, and then he asked his disciples to begin kirtan. During the kirtan, one of the members of Gita Bhavan gestured to the devotees to jump down in the crowd as he had done on the preceding night. But what had been a spontaneous event the night before could not artificially be staged simply as a crowd pleaser. The man, however, was insistent. He came forward to the edge of the stage, reaping up and began grabbing at the feet of dancing devotees, trying to pull them in the audience. The devotees became annoyed. Grabbing indiscriminately, the man pulled at one of the women's saris. Srila Prabhupada was also dancing. But when he saw this, he rushed to the edge of the stage, swinging his kartals towards the man's face and shouting, "Stop this!" The man retreated, and Prabhupada and his disciples continued their kirtan. Although little noticed by the crowd, Prabhupada's burst of lion-like ferocity had amazed his disciples. The festival directors were once again pleased with Prabhupada's lecture and kirtan, but Prabhupada sent them word that he would not again sit through the other directors waiting his turn to speak. He had wearying of hearing opinions on Bhagavad Gita that avoided the conclusion, surrender to Krishna. Some speakers made the Gita an allegory, while some said Krishna was not an actual historical personality, but some simply took advantage of the Gita's popularity to put forth their own political and social philosophies. A person with his own philosophy should write his own book, Prabhupada said, not use a vehicle for his own ideas. The Bhagavad Gita, a scripture worshipped by millions and respected throughout the world. Why should a conference under the name Gita Jayanti become a forum for speculative philosophies? Bhagavad Gita states that the Gita itself is the essence of knowledge, meant to benefit the world. To misinterpret the Gita, therefore, was the greatest disservice. Prabhupada felt that by sitting through such a program, he and his disciples were tactfully approving the blasphemous speeches. On the third night of the festivals, Prabhupada and his disciples came early to the stage, having been promised by the festival directors that they would be first on the program. But when another speaker stood and began his discourse, Prabhupada followed by his disciples, stood up and walked off the stage. The festival director was quite disturbed by this, since most of the audience had come especially for the kirtan. He pleaded with Prabhupada to return, but Prabhupada refused. He did not agree, however. He did agree to send his disciples every night. They would speak and hold kirtan. This shows us, it's in the Gita, Krishna says, Bhakto sime sakachati, that you can understand this science because you are my devotee as well as my friend. And Krishna says to those who are constantly devoted, Tesham shatatam yuktanam bhajadam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantate. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they come to me. So if we're going to speak on Gita, we should bring out the points that are there. It's funny, Prabhupada was talking about one person whose name was Surendranath, and he was saying, when Krishna says to surrender unto me, he doesn't mean to surrender to me. He says, he means to surrender into the unborn that's within Krishna. And Prabhupada, so he has a perfect name, Surrender Not, because he surrenders not to Krishna. But you figure that when people say something, you would take it to mean that, right? Like if I say, can you please bring the book to me? And instead you bring an orange. Because when I say book, I don't really mean the book, I mean an orange, right? Is that what I mean? Or you bring a chair. Don't you figure that what someone means when Krishna says, surrender to me, what does that mean? Doesn't it mean just what it says? If we say that we are holding the Sunday feast starting at 11 o'clock, what does that mean? Now we have to be clear in it. It's like the card says on there, Sunday feast begins 11 o'clock at this address. I remember sometimes in the newspaper they would talk about certain festivals that were going on, but it didn't tell you the time and the place. Can you imagine giving the invitation? Please come to our temple and come to our program, and it doesn't say where or when. That isn't, we missed the whole point. The whole point is to say when and where. So Prabhupada is giving the teachings of Bhagavad Gita as it is, not as it isn't, so that we can understand the real meaning. And we see that when Prabhupada translates the verses. Twice Krishna mentioned the Gita, that worship me and become my devotee. He mentions this. He mentions the main verse, Sarva dharmam parijaja mamekam saranam vaja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mukshayashami masuchaha. Give up all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I will protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. That doesn't mean we give up religious process or not do the ritual, but we don't do the ritual just for the ritual's sake. We offer the incense and the flower and the water to Krishna and the lamp, and we're doing it as an offering. Give up all varieties of religiosity. Well, many times we'll have Brahmins who, see, the Hare Krishna mantra can be given to anybody. When you pass out that mantra card with the mantra on it, can people take it home and chant that? Yes? It's only 3 words and arranged in an order that they can do this. Whereas if a Brahmin has to come and chant some very extensive mantras for you to get some material benefit, then is that something you can do? See, that's why some people say they're spiritual, not religious. Because if you go to the spiritual God and ask for material things, is that a spiritual process? It may be a religious thing to have a fire sacrifice and you offer ghee and sticks in the fire, and you're doing a sacrifice. You're doing a religious process and a sacrifice so that somebody can have a baby. It's like some people go to the Radha Kund and they throw a pumpkin in the Radha Kund on the day of the appearance so that they can have a baby. Is that a spiritual process? Is it? But they're going to a spiritual place and they're doing a ritual. Doesn't that make it spiritual? It's not. Spiritual means you're engaging on the spiritual level. If you're asking for a baby, or you're asking for more money, or something for yourself, then it's not a spiritual process. People are thinking, well, I'll ask, I love God so much because whenever I need something, I pray to God. Is that a spiritual process? It's like they say, a friend in need is a friend indeed. If I say, you know what, you're my best friend, because whenever I need money, I call you. Whenever I need a ride, I call you. Whenever I need to do my laundry, I call you to help. Whenever I need a ride somewhere, I call you. That makes me your best friend, right? No, you're my best friend. I'm not your best friend, am I? So it's like God's thinking, oh, here they are again with another list of requests. So this isn't a spiritual process. And this is why Krishna doesn't say give up a spiritual process. He says give up all varieties of religiosity. It looks good when you have the pit to do the fire sacrifice, and you have the sticks and the geese, and you chant all the mantras, but then you're asking for some material benefit, like throwing the pumpkin in the Radha Kund. We're going to the spiritual God and asking him to fulfill our material desires. Doesn't this seem like something is missing there? Wouldn't they be better to just go to the bank and ask for a loan and just go buy the things? So if they can get a loan at the bank, or they have enough money, then we don't need God, right? Because if God is there to fulfill my material desires, and I get my material desires filled somewhere else, does that mean there's no need for God? Is that what it means? Does it mean that if I need you to give me a ride and I need you for money, if I get a car and I get money, does that mean you're of no use? Does that mean you have no value? Because now I can fulfill these things on my own? And you put God up on the shelf? But it's because we're going for the wrong purpose. And just like if someone treats you that way, they don't have a relationship. It's not a give and take relationship, it's a take relationship. Prabhupada says that we serve Krishna in the dative case. You know what the dative case means? I was talking earlier with Ujjala. Prabhupada mentions how, the male Ujjala, about how using the cases in English is important. Like if someone lights a cigarette, you use the objective case. They say, I'm sorry, smoking is not allowed here. But when you're inviting someone to the temple, you don't say, we're inviting people. You say, oh, I'm inviting you to the temple. It's the nominative case. I'm inviting you to come to our program on Sunday. Then it becomes personally. So we have to know sometimes we don't want people to take things personally, and other times we do. When we're inviting someone to the temple, we want them to take that personally. We don't say we're inviting people, we're inviting you. And the dative case means what I do for you. He says we worship God in the dative case. We offer food to God. We chant prayers in praise of God. We perform service for the deities, which is interesting because in English we don't use the dative case. The dative case is all about what you do for someone else, not what they do for me. It's what I do for them. But that shows there must not be much of a service attitude if we don't even use that case in English. But now we have to serve God in that case, in the case we don't use. But we have to learn how we do things for Krishna, not how we ask him to do things for us. So it's not a spiritual relationship if you come to the temple and you have a list. I want more money. One man went to the temple and he says, God, I'm really a very simple man and I only need 4 things. If you could provide these 4 things for me, I won't ask for anything else. And the 4 things are older whiskey, younger women, faster cars, and more money. So I'm a simple man. I'm only asking for these 4 things of you. Does that make someone simple? That kind of goes more like the saying, live fast, die young, and live a beautiful body behind. Because that's what they want. Younger women, older whiskey, younger women, faster cars, and more money. Now, because they're praying to God for this, is this a spiritual thing? Is it? Does this go under the category of surrendering to Krishna? Or is this asking Krishna to surrender to you? I only want 4 things. It's like Vamanadev says, I only need 3 steps, right? So this is not the spiritual relationship. Prabhupada is teaching us how to have a spiritual relationship with Krishna, how we do the things for Krishna. We chant Krishna's name, it purifies us, it makes us happy, but we're doing it for Krishna's pleasure. Krishna says all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer, and sacrifices should be done as an offering to me. We don't sit on the bed of nails like some people in India do, or go to the Himalayas and sit on a block of ice, or like the French boy was opening the window, letting in the snow, saying it's an austerity. We do things for Krishna's pleasure. And if it's an austerity, then maybe we do it. But is that the thing we serve Krishna as long as it's convenient? It's funny, we think, some people had trouble coming to the temple for the feast because the feast would start way late. Instead of 11, it would start at 3. Some of the Americans don't start till 5 or 6. Now, of course, there's some degree of crime here, but they forget in the old days how we had to do to please Krishna. When I told people that I had come here alone to start a temple, they said, oh, did you go to the Sri Sri Radha Radhanath temple? Because here, you know what the austerity is? You have to wait for someone to open the door and open the curtain. And you have to find parking. But that shouldn't be too hard because you can come in the bottom or come on the top. Some places, you don't have that. It's like Laguna, it's a popular town, and you got to park some of these spots in the summer. The parking is like $0.25 gets you maybe something like 6 minutes, which means that you're paying $2.50, which would be, how many rand is that? $2.50 would be about 50 rand an hour to park. Is that a lot? Some of them cost that much. And that's where they have to go. After 7, the parking's free, or if they can find a spot, they sometimes have to walk a quarter or half a kilometer away, park somewhere down like as far away as the mall is and walk there. Even the LA temple doesn't have that. You have to find some place to park. So it isn't too much of an austerity here. Parking is arranged. They just have to open the curtain for you. And yet still some people find it difficult. And now if you can't come, it's available over the internet. So we have to think, if Krishna is making some things easy for us, we don't make things difficult for Krishna. When we're at the temple, we see if we can do something. If people have money, they can donate money. If not, they can help serve out the prasadam. When they come, they should make friends with all the people. You see someone new, you just make a friend of them. You don't have to explain a lot. You just let them know that, hey, I see that you're new here. You can come spend some time with me, and I'll introduce you to other people. If someone's new themselves, they can do like in sales. They quite often have a TO sales. The one person does the front end of the sales presentation, and they turn them over to somebody else who's a more experienced person to close the sale. So some people can just make friends with people and tell a few basic things, where someone else, this is what they used to do, like on the Radha Damodar bus, is the devotees would preach to the people at the college and bring them out to where Tamal Krishna Swami was, and he would close the sale. And that day, you'd have boys who just found out about Krishna consciousness that day. They're shaved up. They're on a bus wearing saffron. And the next day that bus leaves to take them somewhere else to do festivals and sell books at a shopping center. That very day they become a devotee. Can you imagine that? They just found out about it and they're convinced to join it. So maybe you can't be that kind of presenter of Krishna consciousness, but you can give a few basic things and introduce them to other people. It's quite often devotees who are good at that. If someone's here for the first time, they introduce them to a few other people. And sometimes people ask me that. Someone out of the blue, I noticed a message, because I don't always check my phone in America. It's the phone here, but you still have to call it. And she said, oh, I hadn't been to that temple in a while, and I don't know anybody. I'd like to go when you're there. Take me there. So quite often people either want someone to take them, or they want someone to meet them there. And of course, the people who just show up on their own are the most sincere, because they're not waiting for someone else. If someone else, what are you doing here? Well, my brother wanted to come, and I'm staying with him, so I came also. But if someone came by themselves, it wasn't because someone else wanted them here. And they didn't want to wait for someone to bring them or meet someone. They just wanted to come. So these are the people you want to talk to. Last Sunday, that one couple was here for the first time. I talked to them for hours afterwards. People had left like 2.5 hours before. They were still there. And you find that sometimes with new people, that they want to spend the time. You don't want to give them up because it's the lunch bell. You're talking about someone about becoming a life member and taking a set of all the books and lunch bell. Oh, yes, oh, no, there's the lunch bell. We'll get back together after that. You don't discontinue with people. This is our greatest. People ask for blessings. The blessing comes when we teach the science to others. They want blessings for free. But when you want blessings, you teach the science to those who are new and spend time with them. Sometimes all they need is someone as a friend to spend time with them. You don't have to explain Vedanta, its mortology and ontology. You just have to be able to be a friend to them and let them know what Krishna consciousness has done for you. Give them a mantra card, show them a few basic things, and make them feel like they want to come back. So we will quit there. I will leave the spot in here. I'll put the green marker right here on the bottom of this page where we left off, so it won't be a confusion as to where we are, right? Should that be clear? Right there? Does that look like it's it? Rather than put this somewhere else and put this, we have to leave it good for the next person. That's like when I was being thrown out of here. I started with a debt of $15,000, and then I had to add another $3,700. But when I left them with $5,000 worth of books and a car and contacts and things to do. So we want to leave for the next people. We want to make it easy for them, not make it difficult. And then the idea is to get blessings. They can make it easy for others. That's where the blessings comes from. Not just, can you give me blessings? We should be giving blessings to get blessings. Does that sound good? Give blessings to get blessings. All right, Hare Krishna. I'll be going to do a program near the lilamrta beach later, and I have to be careful at the beach because if I eat a grain of sand, will I break Ekadasi? Will I or not? I'll keep my mouth closed when the wind is blowing.